Good news, kids. Primary and secondary schools will scrap mid-year exams for all students from next year. The US and its European allies are discussing a ban on Russian oil imports as fighting continues in Ukraine. Busy from morning till night, we visit one clinic seeing a surge in COVID-19 patients. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story with me, Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss a single episode. By next year, there will be no more mid-year exams for all primary and secondary school students. Now, if you recall, these exams were scrapped for P3, P5, Sec 1 and Sec 3 students in the past 3 years. And since 2019, those in P1 and P2 have also not had any tests and exams and are not given grades in those years.
Over the past few years, we removed mid-year examinations for P3, P5, Sec 1 and Sec 3. We saw the positive impact. Schools and teachers can better pace and deepen students' learning. They use ongoing assessments to identify what students have mastered and the areas that they have difficulties with. We are also reviewing curriculum content and assessment demand. Any one standard curriculum will necessarily not be able to meet the diverse learning needs of our students. Any average curriculum will necessarily mean that many students will be overstretched while others are understretched. Hence, we must have a range of options to cater to our students' diverse abilities and learning needs.
More on this is our education correspondent, Amelia Ting. Amelia, the mid-year exams have been part of the primary and secondary school curricula even before you and I were in school. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit envious of students these days. Why is MOE choosing to scrap all primary and secondary school mid-year exams now?
Actually, it isn't a sudden change. So the mid-year exams have already been scrapped for a few levels, the primary 3, 5, Sec 1 and Sec 3 students since 2019. And since 2010, the primary 1 kids have already not taken any mid-year or year-end exam. And this was extended to the P2 in more recent years. I think a lot has been said about our education system and its heavy emphasis on using tests and results as a benchmark of where students stand. And MOE, to its credit, has been trying to change that along with the PSLE scoring streaming reforms. And these changes altogether are meant to kind of elevate the stress and the anxiety levels that are brought about by, partly by having so many exams to take.
Building on what you've just said, Amelia, Mr. Chan also says this move will build on the efforts to focus more on students' learning and less on their grades. What are the other pros?
So based on the feedback from schools that have already done away with mid-years for some levels, they've been able to free up 3 weeks of curriculum time to do other things beyond learning from textbooks. They can work on projects or organize activities for students to learn life skills that go beyond book smarts. And not having to prepare for a mid-year exam also means that there's a little bit more time to focus on teaching and learning. And teachers don't have to rush the teaching content so much, and you can pace the lessons a bit better. You don't also have to spend time setting papers, marking papers, and you can think a little bit more creatively about the craft and how to teach and get the students really engaged.
Conversely, by not sitting mid-year exams, Amelia, what could students be missing out on?
Yeah, I think if, even without the mid-year exams, actually students will still be evaluated regularly through the homework, through assessments, quizzes, projects, and older than primary 1 and primary 2 students will still have a year-end exam. So it's not that there will be no exams. And when MOE had announced that it was doing away with mid-year exams a few years ago, there were actually 2 camps of reactions from parents. So some felt like there was actually no difference because students would still be having continuous forms of smaller assessments. And then some other parents, like you said, would felt that it was a risk to not have mid-year exams because you don't have a gauge in the middle of the year to know where your child stands. And then to fill in the gap, some parents went to tuition centers to try and do more mock papers, sit more mock exams. To me, it kind of defeats the point because I think that there will always be different reactions to whatever MOE does because parents essentially hold different views for the reason for testing. And I think as the Education Minister, Chan Tze Sing, pointed out just now during the budget debate, the aim for MOE is not really to remove all stress from students because actually that's impossible, but it's to stretch students appropriately. In his words, not too much and not too little, and to find the Goldilocks points of testing. I think that tests and exams in themselves are not bad things, but it's what the value that we attach to tests that requires a little bit of scrutiny. And as MOE tries to re-examine its own priorities towards testing, I think parents also can try and relook our own mindsets and our attitudes towards tests in the same way.
Amelia, thank you for the inputs. Amelia Teng there, our education correspondent. Meanwhile, more schools will offer their students the option of taking subjects at different levels, with over 2/3 of secondary schools set to implement full subject-based banding or SBB by next year. The phased rollout began in 2020 with 28 schools, then another 31 secondary schools were added to the program this year. 3 schools, which currently only offer the express course, will offer full SBB from 2024. Crescent Girls School, Tanjong Katong Secondary School and Tanjong Katong Girls School.
Our full subject-based banding or full SBB started in 2020. In the pilot schools, students taking different courses come together in mixed form classes. They take 6 subjects at a common level, which is 1/3 of curriculum time, and other subjects at different levels. The experiences from the pilot gives us confidence that we are on the right track. Students have made more friends across courses, learn new perspectives, and learn how to relate better to their peers from different backgrounds. And they have become more confident in themselves and of their abilities. Full SBB represents a major shift to customize learning to each student according to their strengths. However, I must say, full SBB does require more resources. It entails more complex coordination of timetables and requires our teachers to adapt their teaching methods for a wider range of students.
With full SBB in place by 2024, there will no longer be separate express, normal academic and normal technical courses. In line with this, streaming will be removed from 2024 and students will be grouped in mixed form classes. This means they can choose to take different subjects at different subject levels suited to their pace of learning. Moving on to the debate on the Manpower Ministry's budget, Senior Minister of State Zaqy Mohamad says the new progressive wage mark accreditation scheme will be launched in the second half of this year. To be accredited, employers must pay all local workers at least $1,400 and follow any relevant progressive wage models.
Our social compact must be one which everyone enjoys the fruits of growth and that no worker is left behind as Singapore progresses. We must be careful to not let our social compact be eroded by inequality. Otherwise, our society, including our businesses, will not function well and much less thrive. We have made significant progress over the last decade. And Mr. Chairman, we will do even better in this decade in creating a more progressive and inclusive society.
With Russia continuing to hit Ukraine from all sides, the Americans and Europeans are discussing a ban on Russian oil imports. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tells NBC's Meet the Press program that the Biden administration and its allies are exploring possible next steps. He says sanctions imposed so far have already had a devastating impact on the Russian economy. Oil prices have soared to their highest levels since 2008, with Russia providing 7% of global supply. The United Nations nuclear watchdog says it's extremely concerned about what's taking place at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant seized by Russia on Friday. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, any actions by staff now require prior approval by the Russian commander, and communications with the outside world are being restricted. The incident has raised concerns about potentially catastrophic consequences if the facility is damaged. 11 days into the increasingly deadly conflict, military analysts are studying what's next for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Will Ukrainian defenses continue to put up a fierce fight, or will Russian forces finally capture Kiev? We heard earlier from Dr. Samir Puri from the International Institute for Strategic Studies.
As with all wars can take very unexpected turns. There's almost certainly going to be extremely uneven progress for both the Ukrainian and the Russian armed forces. And because the Russians attacked from so many different angles, it's very likely we'll see the Russians advance in some places and are blocked in others. And it could potentially be a very dynamic battlefield. Very quickly, it looks like the southern front is progressing better for the Russian armed forces. It may not even be the case with regards to Kiev that the Russians ever get there. But something I'd like to draw the viewers' attention to is the east of Ukraine, where since those 8 years have gone by, there has been a front line across what's known as the Donbass region or through the Donbass region. I'd expect there to be a bit more dynamism in the east, and possibly an attempt by the Russians to block, to cut off whatever Ukrainian front line remains in the east of Ukraine.
Head to the Straits Times' YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our breaking news updates on the Ukraine crisis. Remember to subscribe and activate the bell icon to get notified the next time we go live. The Ukraine conflict is accelerating the rising costs of petrol here, with the most popular 95 octane crossing the $3 mark today. Shell's 95 octane fuel priced at $3.06 per litre. And with Brent crude inching towards $130 a barrel, observers reckon other brands will hit $3 before the end of the month, if not sooner. Caltex already at $2.98. Esso and Sinopec at $2.95, while SPC is at $2.81. A post-mortem exam has found the NS man who collapsed during a Health Promotion Board quick HIIT session last week died of coronary artery disease. HPB and the Defence Ministry say all HPB quick HIIT sessions will remain suspended until further notice, as a review of safety practices for its fitness program is ongoing. It's the fifth straight day that Singapore's COVID-19 weekly infection growth rate is below 1, with 13,158 total cases reported last night, comprising 140 imported infections and the rest local. And among the local cases, about 11,400 were detected through ART, meaning they were assessed by a doctor to have mild symptoms. About 1,600 were detected through PCR tests. The recent surge in cases has resulted in long queues at GP clinics. Now, you may have even experienced it firsthand. The Straits Times spent 14 hours at a public health preparedness clinic to see what the situation is like for staff there.
Since the recent wave, we have seen the rise in the number of patients, not just the patient, but the positive patient. There is a roughly 50% increase in the visit.
Like I tried to get a doctor online, but I couldn't for the past 3 days. That's why I came down here.
Hello, hi. Yeah, come have a seat. So you tested your ART today?
Yes, this morning.
So you see the two lines there.
Yes.
It is those patients who are having this acute respiratory symptoms, which accounts for the bulk of the patients we see nowadays. 你在外面坐一下，等一下我的护士会帮你做那个检测的。
最近我中那个甲高天，啊，COVID 啊，中 COVID，没有看医生不会好的，才知道我的这样吗？没有，我没有练我的手，不懂一条线那是2条线，现在知道2条线了哦。
Came to see the doctor because I would say it's more reliable instead of staying at home and staying there not knowing what to do.
I know that I can actually not get an MC. I can actually rest at home and get recovered by myself. But because I have quite a few symptoms, which is why I think it's still better to get an MC for this.
The biggest challenge for me is trying to separate the patient COVID to non-COVID related visits. We wanted to not to expose the patient to those COVID cases by asking them to wait outside first until we dispense the medication and also for their turn to do the ART. Now it's around 4:30, so it's a bit earlier than the usual. Today is a bit rare, maybe because it's raining.
As a parent, I'm most worried that she's unwell, like she's not comfortable and she doesn't know how to tell me. And I couldn't tell because I'm not a doctor. So. Yeah, and she's also not vaccinated, so she's actually the last person we want to get COVID.
Okay, Sally, we are done. Well, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad that I can go back and sleep and then get prepared for tomorrow again. I think the first thing I'm going to do is to go home and take a bath.
You can watch the full clip on the Straits Times' YouTube channel, where you will also find more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.